let's talk a little bit more on this next slide about how it's different to the way they work today, how a client would work today. The CLS, as we said, right, Rob, is alongside a Premier license, a concurrent license. It's not a replacement for it. It's a veneer of control. Would it be fair to say it's a veneer of automation, or would that be going too far?
Well, I could definitely see the automation setup when you look at build environments, whether they're static or dynamic virtualized. There's definitely a need to automate that build process, not even the deployment, but just maybe even a sanity check. Some customers want to build on specific OSs so they can replicate what an installation experience will be like for their customers.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that's a stretch at all to say that it would extend to build environments and automation.
Hmm. It's one of the buzzwords of today, right? Everyone's trying to automate everything. And again, in our world, we sometimes have to help clients put the brakes on that excitement, right? Because whilst automation is fantastic, it's also the quickest route to chaos and disaster if it's not well planned. You know.
Yeah, well, you get that set it and forget it with automation, and if you forget it, you might not realize that when you decommission a server, what other utilities or tools are being used that do create major impacts. So that's definitely a concern where customers are trying to figure out, how do I make sure I don't miss the bigger picture? So automation can help, but it can also hurt.
Right, exactly. In fact, we've got a client up in Norway. They make marine engineering products. Let's leave it there. They've got hundreds of SKUs. It's a really old company, over 100 years. It's not as simple to say, right, we're going to have 20 SKUs, right? They've got so many heritage clients. And they have the concept of fire and forget. That's literally what they say. They call it fire and forget. They want to fire a build out and forget about it.
Yep.
And they mean that in many levels. They mean it from a technical level, so InstallShield and the build and the process and the format. Am I signing this build? What kind of build format is it? They also talk about it in the operational side. So, on our slide here, we're talking about the fact that Revenera, whatever cloud system you use, freeing up your team, your people, to do what they're best at. And okay, big companies will have DevOps people, will have SysOps people, will have IT operations people, but more and more the expectations these systems are going to be managing themselves, and I think it's to that same kind of thread. And we touched on the point here on the bottom left actually earlier, is future proofing. So, for example, this company we have, and I think we're going to go to some example use cases with you, Rob, in a short while. People won't go from A to B right straight away, whatever that A is, whatever that B is, and it's the same here. They won't. I mean, firstly, if you said to them, "Oh, it's dead easy," you're going to click, next, right, to use an InstallShield style. It's not that simple. But what we can do, I think, with the CLS is really streamline that. We can help handhold them through that transition to a cloud-based system. It's not big bang. Not every system will do that straight away. They might want to manage how that's done, right? And I think that's the message, isn't it? That this is a technology which will help them ease that path to a more future-proof system with the DevOps team.
Yeah, and that's not just with InstallShield as far as like a cloud license server, but also the question is, what cloud provider should we go with? Are we already a Microsoft shop? We're all in, and Azure is naturally what we're going to leverage, or as you said earlier, Crispin, Google is actually kind of stepping up in the ranks and now appearing as a number 2 provider. So that's what's really great about the Flexera solution, is that we do not need to pin you down to what cloud provider. So it's fully agnostic, and you can support Azure today and next month, next year, whatever your timeline may be. If you need to switch for whatever reason, you have that flexibility. So I think that helps future-proof that if you haven't figured who's going to be your all-in provider from a cloud standpoint, you don't need to make that decision before deciding whether or not making the leap to a cloud license server with the InstallShield solution makes sense.
And they can change that, like you're saying. I think that's not always that obvious in these kind of systems where, there's no question Azure is number 1, right? I think that's just through the kind of saturation of the Microsoft technologies. And if you're in a business looking to migrate to using the CLS, you might want to soften the impact, have a go for the low hanging fruit of just adopting Azure, have a proof of concept, some quick wins to show your management or your team, hey, this can be a great thing. But actually, in 6, 12, 18 months time, if the business strategy is to go to the Google, solutions or AWS, for example, they can change that. It's not set in stone, right? So this can change as their business changes as well. And also, I guess, through M&A, right? That's another area that a lot of our businesses will see they're inheriting products, legacy products they don't know a lot about, right? And suddenly you've got product Z and there's a massive overhead in terms of management of it, right? I mean, like you guys probably see the same in Revenera that we see on the shop floor, so to speak.
Yeah, a funny example of that is something as simple as Teams
Yeah,
versus Slack.
right.
Well, you kind of have to do one or the other. You can't do both. Well, that's not a situation you would need to be in with your cloud provider, because InstallShield is going to support whatever cloud provider you go with. No additional charge, no real change on your end other than
Yeah,
just obviously identifying where those instances are hosted for build machines. But that's kind of one of a bigger advantage point is you have that ability to pivot or do an audible on the fly and be able to meet your customers' needs, which is ultimately what we're trying to solve here.
yeah, yeah. And actually, a side effect of that is a reduction in CapEx, right? I mean, who doesn't love that? That's good for any business. And for all the benefits of traceability and reporting up the value chain, less stress around that, I guess, less, again, maintaining, less updating, less risk. I guess that's a bigger word as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, as the industry has changed, the world has changed with respect to virtual machines and how those are sold and licensed. This is creating questions amongst a lot of other software vendors and trying to figure out, well, how do we do that? And shifting to operating expenses seems to be a way to help, at least in the sense that you can pivot more easily should needs change years down the road, or even a quarter down the road. So it's something that we see a lot, and customers need to be able to reduce that expenditure on physical machines
Yeah,
and dedicated servers that are going to act as a licensed server.
yeah,
So it does kind of come full circle to not just supporting your customers, but internally to the business and how to more efficiently and more effectively run the development operations and ultimately a software development lifecycle.
yeah. And it mirrors the expectation nowadays that most software is sold as a SaaS model, right?
Very true. Very true.
You go back 15 years, 10 years, you'd go and buy a piece of software, you'd pay whatever it was for your license, and that was it for the year. Then you'd pay another year. Everything is at least has an option of a SaaS model now, a subscription. And it's very comfy. People are very comfy with it. And I think if people are more comfy, they're more likely to adopt it, and the business will see the benefit in that as a result.
Yeah, and I think this is where you see usage change, right? There's not really the old days of a 1-to-1 ratio of a power user that I do this all day, every day. You
Yeah,
kind of see that
good
shift
point.
to agile
Roll.
development, right? And Scrum teams and more of that all hands on deck. And you don't want to put all that knowledge and that dependency into a single human being that could leave the company, right? Or something could happen where now you've lost all that tribal knowledge.
The
So a
truck rate,
lot
the
of
truck rate, we
organizations,
call it over here.
yeah, right.
The truck rate.
I'm certain you're seeing a lot of that in your world, Crispin, where you've got customers that have had an installer that's been working, but they aren't the original author. So they try to figure out, well, what went into this? There's a team of us that are using this. So
it's classic. And, it can be built on a server that nobody actually knows where it is, right? It's kind of, well, we know it works. There's this automation script that does a magic build every week. It pulls in all the resources from my dev team, and everything's great until it's not great, And then I've literally had clients in the past where there was basically almost like a treasure hunt to find where this damn server was, so they could do an update on it. And until they did an update, they couldn't make a build. Until they made a build, they couldn't get the build out, and clients wouldn't get, it's an extreme example, but it's
and with the risk though, it's at that point it's too late. The negative consequences already happened. Your customer hasn't received their build.
Because it's banging out the door, the digital door, right? Emails, inbox, where's our release, all this kind of stuff. And so I think it's about being proactive, isn't it? Having a solution around avoiding those things. I mean, it's all well and good to have a good, strategy to firefight, but we'd all prefer not to have to firefight in the first place.
That's right.
Yeah. Amazing. So some good differences. I think a blend of I think it's the classic blend, isn't it, Rob, of people, process, and technology, right? That we're kind of bringing into here.
Yeah, well, and also mentalities, right? Some
Yeah,
don't want to. They don't want to rely on a single person or a single team. They want to be able to spread that knowledge across the organization so that as they grow and as they if they are acquiring competitors or just complementary technologies, they're able to take advantage of that. They're able to integrate that organization and truly work as one team. So we really see that agile methodologies as a key theme and a lot of companies moving towards that.